Welcome once again to our Shiur on the Aseres HaDibros. Last night, we had the privilege of beginning the discussion based on the first few words in the Pasuk. Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am Hashem your God, Asher Otzeisicha Me'eretz Mitzrayim, who took you out from the land of Egypt, Mibeis Avadim, from the house of bondage. We spent time discussing the uniqueness of the word Anochi, that it's in relationship to the one that he's speaking to, that the Jewish people exist by him. We also spoke about the use of Hashem and Elokecha, Yudke Vavke meaning Midas Orachamim, and Elokim meaning Midas Hadin. And we have to realize that the merciful God that loves all of Klal Yisrael, and he's Racham V'Chanun, is the one who gives us the law. He is our lawgiver. And as we explained, this doesn't only mean that we believe in God, which of course the Even Ezra and others say is the first mitzvah, but it's more to the effect that we believe that Hashem is the one who gives us responsibility, and that we are mekabel ol malchus shamayim. We are accepting upon ourselves the yoke of the kingdom of heaven at the end of Yom Kippur. Right at the end of Yom Kippur, we say, Hashem Hu HaElokim. Those three words are taken from the Navi in Malachim Aleph, in which Eliyahu Hanavi gathers together all of Klal Yisrael and all the Baal worshippers and proves that Hashem is the one and only, and the people ended up saying Hashem Hu Elokim. Hashem is the God. And it doesn't mean that God is God. Of course God is God. What it means to say is Hashem, he is the lawgiver. He is the one who is the merciful God and gives us the laws that we have responsibility to observe. And then we spoke about Asher Otzeisicha Me'eretz Mitzrayim, that he is the one who says, who took you out. Asher Otzeisicha, that I took you out, Me'eretz Mitzrayim, from the land of Egypt, Mibeis Avadim, from the house of bondage, and that this is indicative of the historical connection that Klal Yisrael has with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and as it's been passed down from parent to child, rabbi to student, mora to talmidah, all the way down throughout the 3,300 plus years of history of the Jewish people. Tonight, I'd like to go back just a little bit and focus on a few words of the Even Ezra before we explain a little bit more about Me'eretz Mitzrayim, Mibeis Avadim. The Even Ezra says the following. We don't have it on the screen. It's only a few lines. I'm going to read it. It's so beautiful. The Even Ezra actually has 2 or 3 pages of commentary on the Aseres HaDibros, just the first pasuk. And here he comes along and says, V'hinei ze adibur harishon hu iker kol hatisha hadvarim hanichtavim acharav. This first mitzvah, this first dibur or pronouncement of Hashem is the most important one of all the others that follow. V'hu karov mi mitzvahs halev. And this is one of the mitzvahs in the heart that we carry with us on a constant basis. Whenever you have the slightest thing in your head, in your heart, that needs a little chizuk, all you need to say is yourself, wait a minute. Anochi Hashem Elokecha Asher Otzeisicha Me'eretz Mitzrayim Mibeis Avadim. Hashem took Klal Yisrael out of Egypt from the house of bondage. What I'm going through is a cinch. This is Halev, says the Even Ezra. The Tam Zahadibur, and the purpose of this is Sheyamin the Tihya Emunas Liba B'li Safek, that the Emunah you have should be without a doubt. This is historical. We're not making something up. Ki zeh Hashem hanichbad shehu nichtav v'lo nikra hu levado Elokav. The name of God that's written one way and pronounced another, because if you take a look at the letter Yud Kei Vav Kei, we pronounce it and I'm going to say it only for educational purposes, but otherwise you shouldn't say it. We pronounce it Adonai, but really it's not written that way. It's written with Yud K Vav K, and a pasuk in Shmos says when Moshe is being spoken to by Hashem at the burning bush, at the sneh, the one that was burning in fire wasn't consumed. Hashem said, Zeshmi la'olam, v'zezichri l'dor dor. This is my name forever, and this is my remembrance for all time. And if you take a look at the word la'olam, Lamed Aleph, Lamed Mem. Now you should know the word la'olam is supposed to be spelled Lamed Aleph Vav Lamed Mem, but there's a Vav missing there. And Rashi brings it down and he explains the reason why it's missing is that you should read this word, Zeshmi le'olam. This is my hidden name. Yud Kei Vav Ki is a hidden name. V'zezichri l'dor dor. But this is my remembrance for each and every generation. That Yud Kei Vav Ki means Haya, was, Hoveh, is, Yehiyeh, will be. The one that's forever. The one that is infinite. The infinite Hashem who gave us a law by which we can infinitely plug in and get the chizuk of knowing that despite what we're going through, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there for each and every Jew, for all of Klal Yisrael, over all the centuries. He took us out of Mitzrayim, the base avodim, and Hashem is with us. I'm going to skip ahead to the Even Ezra, just one or two more lines. And the Even Ezra says a very important thing. Vahotzi Yisrael me'eshus hamazolos. He took the Jews out of the astrological realities, so that they should be his inheritance. And that's why our previous rabbis have said, and it's a Gemara, Ein Mazel LiYisrael. There's no such thing as luck by the Jewish people. I know. Everyone's going to say, Rabbi, come on. Every time a baby is born, you say Mazel Tov. You go to a bar mitzvah, you say Mazel Tov. You go to the wedding, everybody's yelling Mazel Tov. What do you tell me? Ein Mazel LiYisrael. So a friend of mine, Avram Garfinkel Shlita, who's a Rav in Flatbush, we used to learn together. He once explained it so beautifully. He said, Ein Mazel LiYisrael. When do we say that the Jewish people are not under any constellational or stargazing propensities? That's when we osin mitzono shel makom. When we do Hashem's will, we're way above the mazel. We're lamala min mazel. But even when we don't do what we should be doing, and we're therefore not under the category of Ein Mazel Yisrael, we wish each and every Jew Mazel Tov. You should still have a good fortune, even when you don't do everything, and no one does everything right. So the truth is, Ein Mazel Yisrael. That's the truth. We're not under any star or constellation. The Jewish people, if they were under a star or constellation, could never have gotten out of Egypt. But it's because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is above the constellations, and God and Hashem took Avraham. When it says he took him out to the outside, and he said, look at the stars, gaze down at the stars, because he was higher than the Mazel. He was Lamala min HaMazel. He was telling Avraham Avinu, your children are beyond simple Mazel. We are someone that can make Mazel just by virtue of our being loyal to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And so the Even Ezra mentions that. And there's one more thing I want to read from the Even Ezra. And he said, number one, we were Avadim to Paro, and he did a tremendous good for us. And therefore, because of the goodness that he did for us, we are required to guard what he commanded us, even though we don't understand always everything that was commanded. And that's true, because if you only go by what you understand, then there's no empirical right and wrong. It all depends on the subjective ability of one person's IQ to go to such an extent and another person's to another extent. And does that mean that the one who doesn't understand what the other does understand is not required to keep the law? Can you possibly propose that the only laws people keep are those whose ratio legis, whose logical interpretation or logic or reason you understand? You're going to have anarchy in this world. No one's going to keep anything they don't agree with or understand. Since when is any law dependent on its logic? Never, never in the history of mankind has any law that the government passes been subject to someone who says, I don't like the law. I don't agree with the law. Imagine a guy is driving a little bit too fast on the highway, like 30 miles above the speed limit, and he gets pulled over finally by a cadre of state police cars. And they ask for his license and registration. And he says, I don't have one. So they say to him, what? You're driving? He says, I don't believe you have to have a license in order to drive. I don't agree with the law. You're going 90 miles an hour in a 60 mile an hour zone. So what? I don't agree. You should be only a 60 mile an hour zone. What, are you kidding? I don't understand why I can't go faster. What do you mean you don't understand? You're going to end up spending your life in the clink. No law is dependent upon the person's understanding the logic behind the law. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Yeah. So therefore, we have to understand. Sorry? What are you saying? Oh, okay. Therefore, we have to understand that the statement that Hashem Lokecha is crucial, and that's what the Even Ezra is saying. Okay, let's go back to that first pasuk and try to finish it up. Hashem took us out from the land of Mitzrayim, base avodim. What's the difference from being slaves in the land of Egypt and from the house of bondage? Now, Rashi has an interpretation, which we're not going to get into right now. Oh, it's on the board. Okay, so since it's here, we'll read it. It's very interesting. If we go to the next pasuk, please. Okay, next. Okay, so here it is. A little further. Oh, stop. Okay. Little up. We went too far. He doesn't mention it here. Go back a little bit more, just a little bit more. Okay. Okay, so Rashi says at the beginning, Asher Tzeichicha Mieretz Mitzrayim, which means Kedaihi Ha'otzah, just coming out in and of itself is something that is worthy of the fact Shatihu Mishubadim Li, that you should be Mishubadim. Now the word Mishubadim means obligated to me. Now this word Mishubadim, Rabosai, we read in the Haggadah, and in fact, I believe I discussed it with you when we had the discussion about the Haggadah. It says, "The ilu lo hotzi Hakadosh Baruch Hu esavosenu miMitzrayim," and had Hashem not taken us, our forefathers, out of Egypt, harei anu uvanenu, then we and our children, uvanei vanenu, and our children's children, mishubadim ayinu leparo miMitzrayim, we would have been obligated and enslaved to whoever took us out. At any time, we would have been mishubadim. We would have been obligated. The only obligation that we have, as Rashi is teaching us, is the obligation to Hashem who took us out of Eretz Mitzrayim. Can we go to the next Rashi, please? And if we go a little further to the next Rashi, a little more. Mi beis avodim. Okay, now watch. Look what Rashi says here. Mi beis avodim. So Rashi says it means mi beis paro, from the house of Paro. That's what it means when it says mi beis avodim. Shehiyisem avodim lo, that you were slaves to him. Oh, eno elo omi beis avodim shehayu avodim avodim. Maybe you'll think you were slaves to slaves. Talmud lomar ve'yiftecha mi beis avodim miyad Paro mela Mitzrayim. You were redeemed from the house of slaves from the hand of Paro. Emar me'ata avodim lemelech hayu v'avodim la'avodim. You were slaves to Paro, but not slaves to slave. Rashi is trying over here to give the Jewish people an insight that we were slaves to a great king who managed to enslave us. But Hashem took us out and freed us, and therefore we are indebted to Hashem for taking us out of the house of bondage, Mibeis Avodim. But there's another interpretation of Mibeis Avodim. Mibeis Avodim means you were slaves in the house of slavery. We all know and have heard about the concept of a slave mentality. A slave mentality means that a person subjugates him or herself to that which came before. They are enslaved to a bondage that they were raised with. They were raised believing that a Jew is a slave, that a Jew has no rights, that a Jew has no free will. You were raised in a Beis Avodim. I want you to know that you were taken out of the Beis Avodim. And now your job is to psychologically remove yourself from that house of bondage. We all have a past. We all have wonderful past memories of some of the great good that our families have done for us in the past, our mothers, our fathers, some of them, they rest in peace. And yet we know that no one's perfect. No one is without some little idiosyncrasy or fault. And we grow up absorbing some of the patterns of behavior that when we were teenagers perhaps, or even a little older, we became locked into them by virtue of the fact that we came from a house of bondage and we remained in the house of bondage to certain psychological or characteristic idiosyncratic behavior patterns. And here, Hashem is telling you, listen, people, I want you to know something. When I took you Jews out of Egypt, I didn't just take you out of Egypt from the slavery of the king of Egypt, but I took you out from the base of Avodim. You were taken out from the house that enslaved you, that crushed you, that molded you, that tried to get you to think like an Eved, that you are in bondage. You can't get out. You have no free will. You must do only what we say you can do. You will walk the walk, you will talk the talk, you will not think on your own. Along comes the first of the 10 commandments and says to us, not only is there responsibility for you to accept Om Malchus Shemayim, but I want you to know you do have free will. You have the free will of getting out of the house of bondage. You are not locked into that concept. You can choose to be free. The first mitzvah that the Jewish people were given was the mitzvah of the Korban Pesach. When it came to the mitzvah of the Korban Pesach, yes, there's a mitzvah before that, we know. It's really related, the same thing. The same idea. The mitzvah of the Korban Pesach says, V'shachatu oso kol kahal adas Yisrael. And all of the Jewish people should slaughter the Korban Pesach. And the Gemara in Pesachim asks the obvious question, V'chi ha'om kulam shochtim? Do then all the people do the shechita? Only one person in each group, or one person for all of Klal Yisrael, brings the Korban Pesach in the Beis HaMikdash. If there was a Korban Pesach big enough to give each of Klal Yisrael a kazayis, You'd only need one. Everybody can eat desires from it if there was such a thing. So you only have the one person do the shechting. And yet it says all of Israel does the shechting. And the Gemara learns that from here we see that the shliach of a person is like the person themselves. The whole law of shlichus, the whole law of agency, of appointing someone who becomes your messenger can only be taught when you yourself have free will. If you're a slave, you can't appoint another to be a messenger because you don't have any power. Hashem gave us the power to appoint messengers. Hashem gave us the power to decide when the new moon is. Yes, we have a limited window of opportunity to decide when the new moon is. It's 29 and a half days, give or take a few minutes here or there. And there's an entire science behind this. But until the Edom come to the Beis Din and announce that they saw the new moon in Rosh Chodesh, the new moon is not there. We don't proclaim Rosh Chodesh because HaChodesh says, Elochem, I've given you the whole world. Even the sun, the moon, and the stars are in your hand to decide when the new moon is going to be. I've given you limits of that decision, but you make the decision. If you say that Thursday's Rosh Chodesh, Thursday's Rosh Chodesh. If you say Friday's Rosh Chodesh, Friday's Rosh Chodesh. Within the parameters that I've given you, you proclaim the new moon because you are in charge of the world because you're no longer in base avodim, in the house of slavery. Jews are free-willed individuals, and that's all part of the first commandment. Along comes the second one, and it's the converse. It's the converse, but it needs explanation because of the language. Lo yi elecha Elohim acherim al ponai. There shall be no other gods before me. Now, the problem with this, of course, is that does this mean that Hashem is admitting that there are other gods? Take a look at the Rashi. The Rashi on this pasuk, when it says Lo yi elecha Elohim acherim, Rashi says Lo ma ne'emar. Why does it say this? He says, Lefi she'ne'emar Lo ta'aseh lecha. You shouldn't make another god. Eli ela shelo yaseh. That means only you can't make it. That's the next pasuk, right? Ha'asi kvar minayim, whatever was already made. Shelo yekayim, that it shouldn't last. Talmud lomar, therefore, the pasuk says, Lo yi elecha. Now, then it says in the next Rashi, Elohim acherim, other gods. What does that mean? Other gods. Are you admitting that there are other gods with a small g? Says Rashi, she'enam elokus. She'enam elohus. They have no godliness about them. Elo acherim aso'um Elohim aleihim. But others made them gods. So now Rashi's explaining, it doesn't mean these are real gods. It means what this Elohim acherim means, Lo yi elecha Elohim acherim. You shouldn't have anything that others say are gods. Al ponai, before me. And as Rashi explains, it means forever. Now listen, here's an interesting thing. There's another interpretation that Rashi gives of what Elohim acherim means. And that is, I believe, if it's not here, let me see if it's here or in the next Rashi. Okay. Yes, it's here. Second line from the bottom, Dover Acher, the Dalet Aleph, yes. Dover Acher, Rashi says another interpretation of Elohim Acherim, Shehem Acherim Le'ovdehem. They are like others to those that serve them. So Akim Aleim Ve'enam Oset Osam. They cry out to them, but they can't answer them because they're made out of stone or wood or what have you. V'domeh Ki'iluhu Acher. And it's as if he's something else. She'eno makira la'olam, me'olam, because he doesn't recognize the person at all. Now, other gods with a small g. You shouldn't have any other gods. There's only one God. Some people, as we're going to learn in the next Rashi, are under the impression that, yes, there is one chief God, but there are all these other little type gods floating around. Take a look at Greek and Roman mythology. You'll see the god of the sea, the god of music, the god of the thunder, the god of the trees. And in fact, the Rambam, when he's talking about how idol worship came about, he speaks about the door of Enosh. Ozu chal likro b'shem Hashem. Then people began to call out in the name of God. What does that mean? Does that mean they were speaking and talking to Hashem? No. It means that they gave names to everything that was a god. They saw an evergreen tree, an evergreen tree. Ooh, an evergreen, it's always green. Most trees aren't always green. This one is always green. Must be, this is the tree god. He's evergreen. He's always green. He must be the tree god. Fascinating piece of trivia. You know, the Xmas trees are always, because of the winter, evergreen. But it's a throwback to Avodah Zarah. It's the same thing. It's always green. It may not be a full idol worship. It may be a partnership, as the Rambam translates it, shutfis, idol worship. But it's idol worship. It is still idol worship because Hashem Echad, Hashem Elokeinu, the merciful God that's our lawgiver, is Echad, one, not two, not three, only one. And consequently, Hashem is saying, you shouldn't have things that are others, that people made them into gods, in addition to me, or besides me, because there's only the unity of God. The entire world is unified. Every single aspect of both the physical world and the non-physical world. When I say non-physical world, let me take a look like this. The biological world and the archaeological world and the astronomical world work together. The biological world, even if you're going to go into some theory that you don't need a God for biology because there's survival of the fittest, of the origin of species. And you don't need a God for this because everything progresses over time and evolves. But listen, people, that means that not only do the physical species evolve, but their food evolved along with them, just in time to provide the natural food that all of these Homo sapiens would need. And that this biological world knew that there was an astronomical world. There was a rain cycle, which, by the way, is totally inorganic. And all of Darwin's theories are totally about origin of the organic species. But without the confluence and cooperation of all of the rain cycle, which is inorganic, there would be no organisms. Even this goes together with the organic world. Who made this unity of all of the world's nature? So they'll come and say, oh, nature is perfect. Wait a minute. There's nothing on this earth that's perfect. Nothing, zero, zilch, nada. Doesn't exist. Perfection is not on this world. And yet the world is perfect. How marvelous is nature that it rains just when you need it. And the perfect mix of oxygen and nitrogen is coming in the springtime by virtue of the lightning, which heats up the atmosphere so that the molecular structure of oxygen and nitrogen can combine, which readily do not, because the heat combines them into the ground, which allows it to grow. Oh boy, what a miracle. How wonderful is nature. Sorry, sir, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu's planning this. There's plan and purpose in every single step of the way. Because if you think otherwise, you're talking about Elohim Acherim. You're not going to have a God. You're going to have foolishness. You're not going to have an empirical right and empirical wrong. You're going to have nothing but emptiness and no one to talk to and no one to pray to and no one to understand your humanity, your heart, your soul. You cannot possibly understand anything of goodness in this world because there is no such thing as goodness due to the fact that it's not biologically measurable. There's no cell for it. And there's no unity without the confluence of all this. So you can't have any others al panai. And we go to the next pasuk. We're falling behind. I want to finish this today. Lo sasel l'chol pesel v'chol temuna. You are to not make an image or any likeness, picture. Asher b'shamayim me'ava asher mitochas, asher ba'aretz mitochas, and you can't make it anywhere from the heavens above, the earth below. Asher b'mayim mitachas la'aretz, or a fish god. You know, the Pelishtim had a god called Dagon. That was what it was, Dagon. It was a fish god. Take a look at Shmuel Aleph. If you have a chance, look at the beginning. When it says that when they took the Aron of Hashem into the Avodah Zarah of Dagon, the next morning Dagon was gone. He fell down. How did he fall down? My. So there was a fish god, and along comes the pasuk. It says, don't bow to them, and don't worship them, because Hashem, your God, is an all-encompassing God. We don't have time to finish this next statement. It's valuable, it's crucial, it's important. But in Yitz Hashem, tomorrow night, Wednesday night, we're going to come back and try to visit this and finish it up and try to at least get this particular one of the Seres Hadiros completed, where it says, I know the translation is, jealous, or you have it here, impassioned. It really means one that is konei hakol, like we say in the davening, who remembers the sins of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generation, to those that hate me. We will come to this in Yetz Hashem tomorrow with the conclusion of Oseh Chesed La'alofim, but he does kindness to thousands, La'ohavayi L'shomrei mitzvosai, to those who love me and guard my commandments. And we are a recipient of that Zechus Avos that has been given to the thousands of generations to Avraham Avinu. We are today only about 85 generations away from Avraham Avinu. That's all, believe it or not. That's all it is. And we have a couple of more thousand to go, Baruch Hashem, because of the kindness of Avraham and his loyalty to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's so much here. I don't know if we have enough time to do all that I want to do in this, but we're going to do the best we can on Wednesday night to wrap up at least the first few commandments and an overview of the entire 10 and how they relate to each other. Even though we're going very slow now, there's a lot to cover, and I do hope to be able to accomplish that. If not, I'll extend the Shiur a little bit on Wednesday night, because it's crucial to come to the Yom Tov of Shavuos with at least a basic understanding of the Aseres Hadibros. So thank you for joining with us. We hope you enjoy the Shiurim. We're about to start the Mishnah and the Halacha, and we'll pick this up in Yetz Hashem on Wednesday night. Tomorrow night, we're continuing with the Gemara Shiur in Masechta Makos. At 8 o'clock, at 7:45, we'll do the Mishnayos and Halacha. We're stopping the